I need some traction. You need some traction.
Hey everyone, Lloyd Lobo here, co-founder at Boast AI and Traction Conf. Thanks everyone for joining us. This session is brought to you by Boast AI Launch Academy in partnership with BCF Ventures, Lazarides Institute, and Founder Institute. I'm super excited about today's topic. I'm personally passionate about it because people do business with people, and a big part of engaging people is experiences. But with COVID, everything is gone out of whack. And it's difficult to engage people the same way you did offline as online. And I couldn't find a better speaker than Jonathan today. He's the CEO and co-founder of AnyRoad to tell us about how to use experiential marketing to grow your brand and your company. AnyRoad is funded by Andreessen Horowitz and hailed as one of Mark Benioff's best investments. And they help companies like Peet's Coffee, Oakland Raiders, Golden State Warriors, Honda, Red Bull with their experiential marketing and helping grow their brand. So really excited to have Jonathan here today. Jonathan, how are you in Corona times?
Hanging in there. Nothing on my mind, just a normal day, normal Tuesday with, nothing in the news.
Give us your journey. Tell us how you came up with the idea and led all the way to an investment, personal investment by Salesforce's CEO, Mark Benioff.
Yeah, so my background was in neuroscience. In college, I studied cognitive neuroscience. Knew I didn't want to be a scientist because I love people and natural light and things like that. But my first job right after college was at Red Bull. And this was crazy. This completely blew my mind because when I got to Red Bull, we were spending billions of dollars a year on experiences. So we see something like 14,000 advertisements every day. And these kinds of billboards don't actually change our brand perception. When you bring your family to this crazy Red Bull event and there are people jumping out of airplanes, going down mountains on tricycles, DJs playing, people are dancing, everyone's having an amazing time, and somebody comes up to you and hands you an ice cold Red Bull, this actually creates an emotional bond that not only changes your perception of the brand, but changes your behavior going forward and your lifetime value and thus revenue directly to the brand. So clearly it worked, right? We're spending billions of dollars a year on this, billions with a B. Red Bull has by far #1 market share now, but what drove me absolutely crazy is that we had no data. And these days you can't work with no data. So we had no data, no CRM tools, no system of record, no software platform to really understand the power of experiences the same way that we can now understand digital marketing. So from a macro point of view, I believe we're in the middle of a massive cultural and economic shift from a things economy to an experiences economy. And we see this across all forms of society. We see this in terms of millennials who are spending way more money on experiences than things. We see this in terms of car ownership, which is declining all over the world because ownership is not all about things anymore. It's about the experience of getting from one place to another. Social media, completely dominated by experiences, way more experiences on social media than somebody showing off their new leather jacket. And with this, the strategies that brands use to connect with people have also changed. So we started in print. You can measure this by circulation. Then we moved into TV, and you measure TV by ratings. Then you moved into social, and we look at impressions and social reach. But now that we're in the experience economy, there needed to be a platform to actually measure and optimize the ROI from experiential programs. So let me back up for a second. When I talk about experiences, I mean anything that uses at least 3 senses. Watching a YouTube video, great, not an experience. Has to use at least 3 senses here. And that's kind of what we use to figure out whether something's an experience. So Sprite, putting showers on the beach, so you can actually shower in a Sprite fountain, total experiential. Lowe's and Home Depot, they have classes, workshops, woodworking, all experiences. Lululemon spends hundreds of millions of dollars per year on free yoga classes. Athleta does this too. A lot of brands are following suit. Why? Because they want to be an experiential brand. They don't want to be a brand that sells leggings. They want to be a brand that gives you the experience that actually drives that loyalty for life. Sur La Table with their cooking classes, Every brand wants to get in front of you at Coachella or music festivals. They want to be where you are, where you're having a good time. Choose your favorite winery, brewery, distillery. It's all about the experience, the tasting, right? You think about, some of us are here in Northern California. You think about your favorite winery in Napa. It really has very little to do about the quality of wine and more to do with the personality of the people there. And you remember when you were there with your friends and the lilacs were blooming and they poured you some extra rosé and you hung out and played bocce ball with your friends and had a picnic. Like, these are the experiences that drive us. These are the experiences that drive love and ultimately drive our purchase behavior to the next time we go out to a restaurant. But I kept thinking about Red Bull, and this is where we came back to. So what we wanted to build is the platform for the whole experience economy. We wanted to say, what would it look like if we could actually look at how these experiences were actually changing consumer behavior? Because we knew at Red Bull that we knew that there was a direct line from these experiences to actual sales, but it was a hazy line. There was no clear effect on people from it. So we built what we call an ERM. So if Salesforce is the CRM, we are the Experience Relationship Management Platform. We work with generally Fortune 2000 consumer brands, everyone from Michael's, Diageo, Tabasco, to Honda and Peet's Coffee and the World Economic Forum, to actually turn their experiences into real-time data all over the world. We're looking at everything from in-store events to appointment shopping, which is really, really popping right now, post-COVID, or not post, middle of COVID, demos and sampling, online events. Now in this pandemic world, online events have completely eclipsed real life events, and built this brand new this brand new world that was, probably wouldn't have showed up for 10 more years if this hadn't happened, and field activations. And we believe that it's important to use one unified platform to pull in data and optimize across all these different channels. And so what does this turn into? This turns into data. This turns into consumer insights, going deep and learning about all the consumers who are participating in these experiences, both online and offline. Brand insights, we use everything from natural language processing to NPS surveys, both pre and post different experiences, to look at behavioral change. We're looking at benchmark insights. So because we work across the whole Fortune 2000, we're actually able to benchmark our customers to say, hey, here's the average in your industry, here's the highest, here's the lowest, and here are the factors that are actually, keeping your experiences from actually hitting the most people. And then impact insights. So we tie this directly back into revenue to say, how much do these experiences actually change revenue? And we can get predictive on this. So we can basically say, we believe that if you institute this experiential platform, this will actually 2x your revenue next year, and we can show you the direct attribution model for that. So here's the elephant in the room, besides for the election, which is the other elephant in the room. COVID-19 kind of killed experiences. We saw, along with every other experience platform in the world, we saw experiences in March and April just drop precipitously. And all of our customers kind of closed up shop. But then something interesting happened. They came to us and they said, we need to be where our customers are. Experiences are not about being in a specific place. It's about being wherever our customers are. And if our customers are stuck at home, we need to be stuck at home with them. So we believed that all experiences were actually going to move, kind of like this webinar, online. And that happened. So we built a platform called AnyRoad at Home, and all of our customers transitioned all their experiences to online: yoga classes, art classes, beer tastings, concerts, parties. We decided to be completely platform agnostic. So we're on Zoom, WebEx, Blue Jeans Network, if you want, Google Meet, YouTube Live, whatever. The platform is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to be able to do this at scale and get real-time data from these experiences. And digital experience adoption has completely accelerated. so much faster than we could have ever imagined. And we're seeing this all across the industry, not only in the conference industry, which we don't play in, but also in these high volume, regular recurring experiences. So reopening's going to be gradual. This chart's a little bit dated now, back from April, but you can see actually not a lot has changed. There are still a lot of reticence to go to a sporting event, to go to the movies, to fly an airplane. It's happening slowly, but we can't just sit around and wait for offline real life experiences to bounce back. There are certainly not going to be conferences in 2021 in real life. And life is unpredictable. So you saw February, big tech's $2 trillion bull run. March 21st, the entire world was closed. Who knows what it's going to be, I mean, tomorrow, the day after the election, nonetheless, in a couple of months. So we have to look at experiences as building a platform for the long haul and becoming to build and getting to the point where we can be agnostic as to whether experiences are offline, online, and ultimately probably hybrid. So we're seeing a lot of really amazing innovation in this space. So we have this Italian grandmother who started making doing virtual pasta making classes on Zoom and got this entire amazing following on the Airbnb experience platform. We saw PE with Joe set a record for most viewers for a fitness workout streaming on YouTube. Didn't even know this was a record, but this is now a thing. There are other people trying to challenge him. We saw theaters go turn into drive-ins, and they're selling out. There are concerts now doing this, and we're basically going back to the 1940s, 1950s with drive-in movie theaters. But this is a way that brands are not only surviving but actually thriving and using innovation during this time. Zoom's actually obviously been on a tear, but the important thing here is people continue to seek community online. And this community is far more important than the actual content. Michaels, the CEO of Michaels, said community is very important to our customers. They want to share and learn with the other makers. Michaels is a North American art company. They used to do millions of art classes in their stores. Now they've moved this all online and are doing this over Zoom. And it's working. You can see they've been on a tear with their e-commerce. Their experiences are booming, even in the middle of a crazy retail environment. They're bringing their community together, and that's the most important thing. Peloton, obviously, also on a tear. Again, it's not about the content. You can find all kinds of exercise classes on Instagram Live, on YouTube. It's about that community that they are owning. So online experiences are here to stay. The future is totally hybrid. We need to focus now on how we can actually build this community. I also want to show that this is not just this kind of like kumbaya community issue. It's also directly resulting in company performance. So this is a retail ETF over the last 5 years, largely stable, not really moving. Retail's dead. Retail sucks. Totally, you should not invest your 401k in a basket of retail companies. But let's focus on experiential retail. All right, here's Lululemon, Nike, and Apple. These companies are booming way more than the S&P 500, way more than the basket of retail stocks because they're experientially driven. Now let's see Michaels. Michaels booming way more than Lululemon, Nike, and Apple. They're basically becoming an experiential business. Taking an experiential focus not only builds community, not only allows companies to survive, but also puts you at a much higher rate than every other company that's just selling shit. Because there are a lot of companies just selling shit, and shit is commoditized. So experiential didn't disappear. It just moved totally online. But the future's hybrid. Other elephant in the room, Zoom fatigue. You all woke up super early this morning, took a step away from Twitter, not to focus on the elections, but how many Zooms are we all invited to? How many more Zoom happy hours do we need to go to? Zoom fatigue is real. We wake up, we check our calendars, we figure out what Zooms we don't actually have to be at, and what Zooms we can be at maybe with our camera off, and what Zooms are super important. let's focus on the quality of online experience and how we can actually get by Zoom fatigue. So we're seeing everything from super large brand activations. These are like live concerts. These are amazing, famous musicians with 300,000 people on YouTube Live. Then we're getting a little bit more specific into influencers, celebrities, unboxings, AMAs. Then we're getting into like experiences and tours, private wine tastings. I was invited recently to a great experience where they sent all the participants 3 bottles of wine, and they had a master sommelier talk us through it and teach us how to taste these wines. And there were 30 people on the Zoom, but everyone is having the same parallel experience at the same time. So there are ways to do this in kind of an online offline hybrid model. Getting into demos, fashion stuff. There's a lot of fashion companies are doing, and car companies actually are doing a lot of really interesting demos. And then basically community. And the biggest difference between each of these categories is kind of the size of each of these experiences. And when you get down to community, we're seeing happy hours, political town halls, art classes that have as few as 5 to 15 people on them. However, when brands can do this at scale, they can do hundreds of thousands of experiences per month with 10 to 15 people each. And this is significantly boosting not only their revenue, but also just the power of that community. A couple how-tos. It's just about Zoom. Zoom's by far the most popular platform. I can show you that in a second. We're going to select the technology. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as you measure and optimize everything. AnyRoad does that. Obviously, there are lots of other platforms that do this. It's not about the video platform because Zoom, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, it's about making sure you know everyone there. So having some sort of forced registration, being able to actually see how these experiences change people throughout time. Surveys are a great way to do that. Purchase behavior is a great way to do that. You're going to want to pull in a natural language processing engine so you can actually get really deep into why these experiences are powerful or not. Set up an experience, figure out whether that's going to be what it's going to be, schedule it, rehearse it, start promoting it on channels. It's also great to team up with other organizations that can help promote that for you with their existing audience. Go live, run it, and then sit down and analyze it. And the analyzation here is key. Number one, we want to capture insights, right? So we want to capture insights before and after every experience. We want to check NPS score before. Now, this is not a very common thing. Why would we want to check NPS score before? Because we want to see what people's perception of the brand is before they even step foot into this Zoom call. Why? Because we want to see a delta. We want to see a change in NPS score over time as Jonathan starts coming to more and more of these traction webinars. We want to see whether his loyalty changes and also his perception of the traction brand changes. Because that's really why we're doing this. We're not doing this just to throw something out into the ether, but really to actually boost NPS scores, boost loyalty, and ultimately revenue. And then we're looking at brand conversion. So this is a KPI that we came up with. Feel free to use it with your audience. But the idea is what percentage of people who are not brand promoters pre-experience actually became brand promoters post-experience as a result of that experience, right? So this is a way to basically say, are we creating new brand promoters? And regardless of what the number actually ends up being, the cool thing to do is to be able to A/B test different experiences. So we can A/B test a big online concert on YouTube Live with 300,000 people and correlate and test that against a webinar with 75 people to actually see which of these has a higher brand conversion rate. Pick the one that does and double down on scaling that one. Interestingly enough, maybe not that surprising, in real life experiences have a higher brand perception than online experiences, although not by that much. There are some other really interesting things that we found out about digital experiences versus online experiences. One, more men attend online experiences than offline experiences. surprising. I don't really know why. Also, from a geographic perspective, we see a lot of brands continuing to focus on physical offline experiences for people in their geographic areas. But if you want to, if you love bourbon and you want to go to Kentucky to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, that's great. But what if you live nowhere near there? These digital experiences allow you to take away the geographic constraint to reach a much different audience. So this is one of the reasons that we really believe that the future is hybrid. And that even what we're seeing is even as physical experiences are coming back, and physical experiences are around 48% back to pre-COVID levels, we see digital experiences just skyrocketing, and they're not actually cannibalizing each other. Just to wrap up here, we must think like scientists. A lot of people who run experiences, for lack of a better word, are not data people. And it's important for us to really look at experiential data the same way we look at digital advertising data or digital marketing or science. So we need to observe what's the situation, where's our brand at? We need to ask a question: will this experience actually drive $2 million in net new revenue next year? We need to form a hypothesis. I believe it will, but only if we invite 150 people, and it has to be CMOs from this specific vertical. We need to make a prediction, and then we need to test it and iterate and continuously go around in circles and figure out what works, and then double down and scale these experiences. So we see makeup workshops, right? We see every beauty brand is really doubling down on makeup workshops, makeovers, both online, offline, both in store and with influencers. And they're actually looking at which factors, using natural language processing, which factors are actually making these workshops transformative or not. We're looking at online classes, right? When we're saying which classes are attracting which type of customers, and these customers, are they actually going to be spending more after a series of 5 classes than they were before, right? Can we actually increase their lifetime value as a direct result of these experiences? We're seeing influencers all over the place. The cool thing, though, I believe, which is a great trend, is influencers moving from postings to actually live experiences. So whether these are unboxings or makeup tutorials or whatever they are, or photography tutorials, what we see is the old way to do it was influencers posting something on Instagram or TikTok. The new way to do it is actually hosting live small experiences at scale, generally in partnership with a brand. And we wanted to go big here, and so we researched a little over 180 online events and experiences to try to see if we saw any commonalities here. So food and beverage by far leading the pack. Roughly a third of all experiential online is being scaled by F&B companies. Retail, apparel, and entertainment close behind. But you can see there's still a lot of verticals that just are not there yet, which is surprising because they don't have a lot of traditional offline channels. You see classes being a really good way to start. People love learning. People want to learn something. And if you can teach them something when they're stuck at home, this is a great way to overcome Zoom fatigue, because so much of Zoom is just these kind of like the same thing over and over again. People are not wanting to go to a lot of conferences and seminars here. You see just 3.7%, but classes, activations, festivals, concerts, really taking off. It's also important to know that it's not about reach, right? Size does not matter. It's about engagement. I've seen brands that do these incredible live experiences that cost millions of dollars, bring in like super famous bands and reach 2 million people on YouTube Live, and they don't know who these people are. They don't know how it's actually resulting in increased sales, and these people never actually come back to any more experiences. I see also other brands that really focus and do small experiences of 50, 200 people, but they get these people to come to experiences every single week. This engagement is what it's all about. And what we've seen in the market is that Zoom and Instagram Live command the biggest pieces of engagement here. YouTube Live, Facebook Live close behind. People all try all these kinds of different platforms, but really, like, we like Zoom the best. We think it's by far the most personal, and the easiest to get data around. Instagram Live's a tricky one because it's kind of a walled garden in terms of what data you can have access to. You can check out the entire list of the 180 events, anyroad.link/online ideas. This will allow you to kind of see what we've seen out there, and we have some notes on there. But again, we just want to make this available to the public. We think the world would be a lot better with more experiences, but that we do need to overcome Zoom fatigue, and it needs the right balance of creativity and data focus to be able to get by. But see what other people have done here. 4 key takeaways just to wrap up. The future is totally hybrid. If you're not doing online experiences, we recommend you get started. It's not going to replace offline experiences ever, but until offline experiences come back, we're looking at both channels as huge growth areas. Multisensory is super interesting. Overcome Zoom fatigue. If you're saying we need to look at 3 different senses, how can I bring some sort of taste into these experiences? Maybe email everybody an Uber Eats gift card and send somebody something. How can I bring more sound into it? So multisensory is the best way to break through the Zoom fatigue. Number 3, focus on ROI. Super important. It's not enough to do it. You actually need to measure it and iterate and optimize it. Look at this as a science. Look at this as real-time data. Continue to iterate and A/B test experiences. Lastly, match technology to tactic. All this data should end up in your CRM system or in your CDP system. If it's not, if it's ending up on Eventbrite or on Zoom or in a dashboard, then it's not actually working for you. So we need to look at this as an actual active channel of first-party data for your CRM and CDP. Thanks.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Some great insights there. I want to dive into questions, but before we go into questions, I would love to dive into your journey a little bit. How did you get Mark Benioff to invest?
Yeah, so we started as an SMB company. That didn't work at all. And then we started to understand that we were sitting on a lot of really powerful data that was actually showing how experiences were actually changing behavior. And around that same time, I pitched a different VC fund, and they said, "Look, this is the kind of stuff that Mark Benioff would be really into." So I pitched Mark, and he was just like, "This is basically like the offline sales force." He's like, "Look, but stop talking to SMBs. This needs to be an enterprise platform. Large companies need this data. There's this huge hole in the market, and invested in us in our seed round, and the rest was history."
Awesome. And then Andreessen Horowitz followed on and whatnot. When you made that switch to enterprise, what were some things you did to acquire these customers?
The hardest thing was to find the people in the organization that needed this the most. Right. A lot of time when people look at, if I say the word experience platform, people are like, "Oh, Ticketmaster or Eventbrite or whatever." Those kinds of platforms are sold to very operational people. We are a data company at our heart. We are all about data. We are all about experiences changing the world, but actually proving that and optimizing that from a data perspective and connecting this directly into brand perception and revenue. So it was a little bit tricky, rather than selling to SMBs where it's like, you go right to the owner, to say which person in these organizations needs this data the most and really understands it. So it turns out to be CMOs and VPs of marketing, sometimes even CEOs. And so now it's about getting to the people in these large and sometimes very complex organizations who really look at experiences as a key driver for the company.
The things you said about 4 sort of sensory touches, I never thought about that way. Is the first time I'm thinking about it. How do you translate that to your business? You're effectively a software company too. So
Yeah.
how have you translated some of these learnings to your business?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is we look at this the same way that a lot of brands look at digital marketing. So a lot of brands, the old way to look at it was, look, if you have $100,000 to spend on Google ads, you can measure that real time with AdWords. You can look at your CTR, you can look at your CAC, you can look at your conversion rates, and you can A/B test different ads. And we're saying, look, this world of data needs to exist for experiences, right? And so we can take two experiences and say, look, this one is just a replay of something that we recorded last week, and this is this incredible whiskey tasting with a master distiller down at Jim Beam in Kentucky, and we can actually compare them to each other. We can actually say, look, what is the CAC, what is the CTR, like sorry, not CTR. We could look at what is that conversion rate, what is the retention rate, and how does this actually impact brand perception. And so we're basically taking in a ton of inputs, but then making sure that we look at this the same way we look at any other database marketing.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm just trying to think through this because even with Traction and like some of the other conferences I'm a part of, everyone's moving digital. But the human-to-human connection that we when we do a boat ride at Traction or go up and do a CEO mountain trip or whatnot is irreplaceable, right? Even having breaking bread with two people. And I'm not sure if in-person events come back in a big way next year. What are you seeing that's working right now? Like, because if you look at the scope of B2B sales and SaaS, field marketing was a big part of it. I mean, even Salesforce, their quotas may have gone down. Field marketing is big in most SaaS companies, right? And what are you seeing people doing for field marketing? Are certain areas more open to like doing small group congregations? What are you effectively seeing that's working?
We're seeing small groups really rule here. I think Zoom fatigue is real. I think Zoom conferences, and there are all these new conference platforms like Run the World and Hopin that are just scaling these conferences. I kind of think they're boring. I've gone on a few recently, and there like be 15 people in one of these sessions. I think that really we're getting to the fatigue level on that. But when you kind of when you look at if there are a million people you want to hit, if you look at how can I hit these million people, there are many ways to do this. You can throw one huge event with a million people on streaming, or you can throw 10,000 smaller events. And we see that the brands that are looking at segmenting their audience and saying, cool, I'm going to do 10,000 small events this year. And they're going to be segmented audience, whether that's by geographic or by role or by gender or by background, by customer type. We're able to have these experiences be a lot more interactive. I totally agree. I'm not going to go to any conferences next year. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think field marketing has fundamentally changed, but I do think that there are brands that are getting really creative, and I think that the most interesting thing that I'm seeing out there is this kind of hybrid, right? Where brands are saying, look, we're going to send you a yoga mat and then have a yoga influencer do a yoga class with everybody who's all on the same yoga mat, and that it's just an object, but it kind of psychologically brings people together more. A lot of companies are doing this with wine, as I mentioned, or beer or whiskey. A lot of our customers are doing online beer tastings. You get to go to a Sierra Nevada online beer tasting or a Budweiser online beer tasting and taste what they're doing. And they'll do a partnership with a company like Drizzly, so they can actually deliver you a 6-pack. So really, I think that there's a lot of area to explore with this kind of hybrid experience.
Let's pull up that slide again with the sensory touches. I want to dissect that a little bit.
Sure.
And what is that? Is that beer you're drinking?
No, green tea. It's no beers until the election results start to come in.
I get invited to these events, right? The thing is, these happy hours are usually at 5 o'clock, and they're on Zoom. The issue there is you're so mentally fatigued after a day full of events that you just don't even want to hop on a Zoom call again. So this is key here, is that how do you integrate, I mean, the site is the obvious one, but how do you integrate, like, I think taste and touch are big ones, right? Like, I think integrating taste, touch, smell into an online experience. I don't know, I'd love to hear what others are doing, but like, if you set up an environment where small groups are able to congregate, or even one-on-one, and you can have that in-person experience, that's great. So the one thing we did at Boast, we did like workout together once a week on Zoom, right? And I
Yeah.
guess there's a feeling of maybe you're smelling your own perspiration there, but like, you're sweating it out together, you're seeing people, there's music, so there's hearing, and that worked well for a little while. We left it to the people to figure it out and run its course, but it ran for 6 weeks, and it was a 6 week program. But what are some other ideas that you think, like, a bootstrap company or a company with little money can do to get customers that like stand out?
Oh yeah. So I've seen people doing cooking classes where they'll actually ship everyone a box with all the ingredients, so everyone has the same ingredients, and they'll have some amazing chef. And so people put their laptops in their kitchens, and everyone's cooking together. Like, that brings people together. Again, it's all about it's about the senses, but it's all about building that community. Touch, we see art classes. We see tons of art classes. We see brands like Michael's doing art classes all over the world. People are participating in these, and they're doing some. And again, it's segmented audience. So they're doing some specifically for kids, some targeted more toward older people, some people who love knitting, some people who love painting. And guess what? You can click through on Michael's website directly their e-commerce store to make sure that you get all the right supplies. So it's really, I mean, anything we can do offline, we can do online. The hardest part is serendipity. And we've seen some companies try to, use like Zoom breakout rooms to kind of like have some forced serendipity. That's really hard, right? Like, part of the reason that people go to conferences or people go to participate in experiences is because you don't know who you're going to run into. And, there are these, great serendipitous moments that are just really, really hard to create, especially when we've, rehearsed these and are scaling them. But really, what I find is that using a mix of creativity, data, and just figuring out what senses we can pull in, this allows us to get by the Zoom fatigue, right? I say no to basically all Zoom meetings that are not completely required these days. But, somebody sends me, a nice bottle of wine and invites me to something that I think is pretty interesting. And, Radiohead happens to be playing on this, and I'll show up at the end of the day.
Definitely. I think this is a good one. I think one of the key things, yes, you need the ideal customer profile, you need the data to track for ROI and whatnot. But this senses, for me, is a big takeaway, because at the end of the day, what is marketing and what is brand? Like, it has to create an emotional benefit for your customer.
That's right.
And your senses are a great way to trigger that emotional benefit. I'm gonna think through this and come up with some ideas to implement in my own business. So this was fantastic. The other thing, what I'm seeing is like, events going into sort of like a distributed environment where it's like an offsite with few people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you
Yeah.
book like Airbnbs, you get together socially distanced and whatnot. But I like this idea of cooking together, knitting together, because even then you could create serendipity if you do an event and you provide a few options, right? Pick your interests, right? And maybe some people, it's like working out together, and you ship them some stuff, Red Bull and whatnot, to get through I don't know, calisthenics workout, or like you ship some people like knitting gear, some people like food who want to cook. And then you have like multiple experiences, and people who are aligned with those experiences can join those rooms and do that live, as they're watching and they're tasting and they're sensing and they're feeling. And I think at the end of the day, that creates a fantastic emotional benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there are also experiences that play themselves well to, I mean, real life experiences also that play themselves well to a pandemic time, like everyone getting in a car and racing cars around a racetrack.
Yeah.
right? Like, these are socially distanced in your own car, and suddenly it's a way that people can, can play together and be together. So I think there are a lot of really interesting ways that this can be done.
I mean, like tennis, like maybe group hikes and
Yeah.
whatnot, right? There's ways to enable that. No, that's fantastic. How are you seeing brands keeping customers engaged outside or between these events? Because that's a tough one, right? Like, I mean, for us, also, it's been hard. Like this year alone, at Traction, we've added 20,000 subscribers, and I found that doing 1-2 webinars a week kept the database engaged. But then
Yeah.
if you keep emailing people, not everyone wants it, and then your like open rate goes down. So like, what are some ways to keep people engaged between these events?
That's a great question. My take on this is it's most important to not look at your customer base or audience as all the same, right? And so where a lot of brands start is they start to say, look, we're going to do this experience, we're going to do this experience every day, and that's great, and a lot of people come every day. But the real way to do this is to say, look, I have tons of different types of people in my customer base, in my audience. How am I going to scale experiences that some of them are going to really love, but this was not even aimed for this one? A great example of that is Anheuser-Busch. So Budweiser has 8 locations around the United States, and they do amazing beer experiences. They have brewery tours, but they also have beer pairing dinners. So if you're a big Budweiser fan, like you've already done the brewery tour, you want to go to the beer pairing dinner. What if you don't drink? What if you go to what if you're in St. Louis, you go to the Budweiser brewery and you just don't drink alcohol or don't particularly like Budweiser? They have an experience called Beerology, which is basically the science of beer making, right? And so by segmenting their audience, they're basically saying one experience does not fit all. And so we're scaling every type of experience to make sure that all of our customers are constantly engaged, rather than kind of just do the same thing over and over again.
The key thing to do it with a cadence, because a lot of people just do this one and done.
Yeah.
People should come to expect it, like a podcast or like a webinar like we're doing. People expect it. Tuesdays, Thursdays, we're doing this, or a podcast. You have to do it with a certain cadence. And then I can't say this enough. I can't believe no one's ever mentioned that before on any of our webinars. Anyone I've talked to is like the senses, appealing to the senses. And it made perfect sense, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you build strong brand loyalty when you have emotional benefit from the brand.
Totally.
Senses are a way to trigger it.
We're in a world where lack of data basically is worse than not doing it at all. And if you are a brand investing in experiences, but you're not actually measuring the real-time ROI of that, then basically it's not worth investing in. If you don't measure it, it didn't happen.
How do you get like executive buy-in? Yeah, maybe when you're a small founding team, it's the founders make the decision. But as you grow, how do you get executive buy-in? Because what I've found is like, so Traction is hosted by Boast AI and Launch Academy. Our focus is helping founders become successful. But generally what happens is, as you grow as a company, your team is saying, why even do this? Like, how do you tie the true ROI of this directly to your business? And sometimes it's very tough to tie offline data, right? Like, okay, I registered for an event, but that doesn't mean they become a client of yours tomorrow or a month from now, right? Like stitching that together to an outcome is very hard. And that's where like, brand marketing and experiential marketing suffers on the ROI table, right? Like, because it's like, why do this? It's not generating ROI. But like for me personally, as a founder, I know like Traction has helped our community grow immensely, helped me grow as a founder, meet all these speakers, and like help the business grow. But like, how do I can't show that in like, okay, this much sales.
Well, so this is what I'm advocating. I'm advocating that we look at experiential as hardcore data. We're looking at this as data geeks. We're not looking at this as like, wow, this is a beautiful experience. Great job with the creativity aspect of it, which is important. But good experiential marketing has about 30x the ROI of the best digital marketing. 30x, which basically means if you are running an organization and you have a $10 million marketing budget at the end of the year and you need to spend on marketing, you should always be spending on this on experiential rather than Instagram ads, Facebook ads, Twitter ads, etc. The problem is that nobody knows how to measure this, right? So that's what we do. And I'm not trying to plug AnyRoad here, but ultimately, like the way to get executive buy-in is to go to your CMO and say, I spent $100K on AdWords, and it resulted in 300K of new sales. That's amazing. I spent 100K on a series of experiences over 2 quarters, and it resulted in 30 times more than that. Therefore, next year, we should just lessen digital marketing. There's still great things about digital marketing, and go all in on experiential, right? Like what we've seen across the board is when people are empowered to make decisions with data, money always flows where the highest ROI is. Right. And then it's just a matter of like measuring and optimizing that ROI. And if you are, have an end of the year decision budgeting to make, you're like, look, 30x the ROI of this one last year, you're gonna do whatever that is. So it's all about looking at this as something that can be and needs to be measured, rather than just kind of the old way to do it, which is like experiences and just like, 50,000 people came. One of the first experiences I organized at Red Bull was called Flugtag, which means flying day. And people like built these like homemade planes and flew them off the pier into the bay here in San Francisco. And I still remember I had to do a write-up of the KPIs for headquarters back in Austria. And I wrote, we spent $14 million on this. There were 50,000 people and we gave out 70,000 Red Bulls. And I was like, that is the most bullshit vanity metrics. Who are these people, right? Yeah. Who's drinking all these Red Bulls? Is it evenly distributed, or is this one person who drinks 70,000 Red Bulls? Is this men, women, children, families? Are these all new customers? Are these people who have, come to all of our experiences before? Most importantly, how do they feel about Red Bull and how has that changed because of these experiences? And even more importantly, are they going to buy more Red Bull tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. And if you had to do that same thing today with AnyRoad, what are some KPIs and key metrics that you would track along the way?
So I would track, first of all, audience segmenting, right? Are these brand new Red Bull customers, or are these people who are big Red Bull fans? I would track average Red Bull consumption per person. And you can ask people that and they'll generally tell you. I would track change of their perception of the Red Bull brand from before the experience to after the experience. And then look at whether this is the only experience that they've actually registered for, or whether they come to all of our experiences. And then I basically tie that back into sales data. And using natural language processing on all the text feedback, we can figure out what things about this experience were actually transformative on men between the ages of 21 and 30 who live in the East Bay versus women from Palo Alto who had never been to a Red Bull experience before.
And as you say all of this is actually easier for software companies than it is for companies that are selling stuff on the shelves, right? Now, of course, with e-commerce and like Instacart and everything, it's probably a lot easier. But it's much easier if you have this mindset when you're a software company, because you can throw an experience, you can segment exactly who you invited, exactly who showed up, and who engaged with your brand, and then tie it directly to follow-ups and LinkedIn messages.
That's right.
And follow-up gifts and purchases and revenue. So this is brilliant. I think I'm a big fan of experiential marketing. And if people say they don't believe in it, look at all the companies that have IPO'd. The fastest growing cloud SaaS companies of the last decade that have IPO'd. And tell me that they don't have an experiential program, right? Like Slack, Twilio, Stripe.
Yeah.
You name it, right? Like they have experiential marketing as a big part of their program, just people don't see it. Yeah, early growth. What happens is a lot of founders think, oh, I'm a technical founder, I got to build stuff that's viral. That always doesn't play out that way, right? You can't build products that go viral if you don't have like reasons for people to inherently share. But if you create awesome experiences, people will share it.
Exactly. And people share that naturally, right? You don't have to encourage it. People will take pictures, share it on social media. I mean, Salesforce is massive and they still spend $140 million a year just on Dreamforce.
Exactly. And in the early days of Salesforce, when they were hijacking Oracle's conference, that was also an experience, right? They were driving those carts and picking and dropping people off and giving them drinks.
And that's what people remember, right?
Exactly. People remember that, and those things turn into loyal customers. It's been hard for a lot of people to immediately measure that, so they got pushed away. But no, this is a good session on having people think about how to get started, who's your buyer persona, what are some events you can do, and then how do you stitch it all together to the end ROI. What was that link again that you shared? AnyRoad link online ideas. Thanks so much, Jonathan. This was fantastic.
So great to be here.
And thanks everyone for joining us.
I need some traction.